everybody, and welcome back to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on X, and for, I think, the third time now, third time on Instagram. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. It is so good to be back with you, back live, back in this studio. I'm feeling pretty good about myself today. Hope everyone is enjoying their Monday. First and foremost, before we get to any business, wanted to say happy Memorial Day and to pay tribute and respect to the men and women that have given their lives, paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that we enjoy every single day in this country. We salute you. We thank you. We are thinking of your families and praying for them each and every day. This is not, we forget about on any occasion where we celebrate our incredible military. We forget just, we don't talk enough about the families and the sacrifices they make and the loved ones that our incredible men and women leave back home. So they're the best 1%. God bless them. May God keep them in heaven. And man, definitely do not look past what this day means. I know we enjoy barbecues and cookouts, and we have a good time with relatives, as we should, but definitely do not forget the significance of this day. Back to sports, though. I am so happy. It's funny, my man Patrick Brown's in the comments. Shout out to Patrick at the grid. He says, welcome back. I know Neeland was glad to see you. He was. I'll tell you something. He is a weirdly energetic cat. I say weirdly energetic. Cats are energetic, but I mean, like, he almost acts like a dog sometimes. When I tell you this is the most, like, up and down all over the place that this guy has been. Like, he was, and the family came to Florida to visit me before we came back here to Tennessee. But it was great to see Neil, and it was great to sleep in my own bed for the first time in 4 months. But I'll sort of later on at the end of the show kind of give a short recap of my college program that I was able to spend at Disney and kind of pay tribute to the people that made it so special. Get to that at the end of today's show. We're going to talk Brock Purdy, who got paid during this little slight break I took, vacation with family, got the bag. We kind of figured he would. I think the Niners made a mistake. Get to that later. Aaron Rodgers threw in another hint that he's probably going to sign with my Steelers. I'm not even mad at Aaron at this point. I'm pissed off with Pittsburgh. Get to that. Tush Push stays. I think it's the correct call for this year. Get to that in about a half hour. Also talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 4 tonight. Thunder are up 2-1. Very excited to talk about that. We'll obviously start, of course, with the Eastern Conference Finals. But first, the Knicks keep themselves alive. They're now only down 2-0. They were facing, 2-1 rather. They were facing a 3-0 deficit to the Indiana Pacers, who I've said all postseason long were clearly these kind of sleeping giant in the East. We knew Cleveland and Boston, these two are going to climb the Eastern Conference Finals, right? Wrong. Neither of them got there. We're all idiots. But I thought Boston was clearly the best team. I thought Cleveland certainly had the case. They were number 2. Boston was the defending champions. And I thought it was kind of Indiana and New York fighting for that third spot. I actually gave the Pacers the nod, to be frank. I didn't think the Knicks would be able to beat Boston. I thought the Pacers could at least give them a shot, given what they did last year without Halliburton in the Eastern Conference Finals. Picked them to upset Cleveland, all of it. I still feel like the New York Knicks are the better team in this series. And I think you saw that in large part. The story of this game is obviously Karl-Anthony Towns. A side story is the fact that the Knicks came back from 20 points down again. The fact that the last 4 postseasons combined, 2021 to 2024, that you had 5 20-point comebacks in the playoffs. This year we have 6 alone in the 2025 playoffs. But Karl-Anthony Towns was special. We can show you what he did in the fourth quarter of this game. He was the man for the New York Knicks. He was the man of the hour. Fourth quarter, game 3, dropped 28 points, 8 boards. He did that just in the fourth quarter of game 3, 6 of 9 for the field, and 3 for 4 from three-point range. We've been known the cat could space the floor. And I couldn't help but watching that game saying, this is why the Knicks brought Cat in. Is that they were a very good team last year, 2 seed, 50 wins, all of it. Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the league, clutch player of the year in the NBA this season. We know what he brings to the table. We know what they had a year ago with DiVincenzo and all those guys. They just quite weren't on Boston's level. They just weren't. Obviously, Mikal Bridges can't short him on what he did defensively and has done defensively, the Iron Man of the NBA. But they brought in Cat because he's a star. They brought in Cat because he's an all-star caliber player that if either Brunson doesn't have it, or in the case of last night, he's in foul trouble. Jalen Brunson can't stay on the floor. He's struggling to do so. You have a Karl-Anthony Towns you can turn to. Maybe he's not going to give you 20 in the fourth quarter. It's only the second time in his career that he's put up such a stat line. But you consider the fact that a guy who was the first overall pick in 2015 out of Kentucky, didn't quite reach the lengths that we thought he would reach coming out of college, but has still been an excellent player in the league. And if he's your second best player, you're a championship contender, which the Knicks have shown themselves to be. I think this Knicks Pacers series comes down to one thing. is that fourth quarter clutch time, who gets it done. And the fact of the matter is, I think we have the two clutchest players in the league going at it this series. Brunson hadn't been great in the clutch. Halliburton has the moment of this series, the fourth quarter buzzer beater to go to overtime, does the Reggie Miller choke sign at the Garden. He thought it was a walk-off. It was not. Pacers still won an OT. But the way I see that game is, Knicks are controlling. And then you have Aaron Nesmith, who decides to go prime 2016. Literally, guys, over my shoulder right now on this poster. 2016, Steph Curry goes berserk in the fourth quarter. Halliburton ends up hitting the shot. Knicks are deflated, losing OT. And then the Pacers come back on the back of a champion, Pascal Siakam, who has seen a thing or two in May and June. It was big time in game 2, and they trailed 2-0. Cat goes off in the fourth quarter to win this one. We forget, people say, if Halliburton didn't hit that shot, the Knicks are up 2-1. If Aaron Nesmith doesn't go nuclear, the Knicks are up 2-1. Like, I think that's what we're forgetting is the weird sort of dynamic of this series that I found really strange is that we saw the Knicks all playoffs long as Tom Thibodeau does not trust his bench. He doesn't rely on enough guys in that second unit, and that's kind of what's going to be the Knicks' downfall in the playoffs. By the way, that still could be. That is always on the board for a team coached by Tom Thibodeau. With that being said, I'm watching this, and again, this is game 3 in a nutshell, or game 3 in and of itself. This isn't how I think the rest of the series necessarily will play out, but could it be transitioning into that? Did Tom Thibodeau stumble into this on the back of Jalen Brunson being in foul trouble all night? Because folks that didn't watch this game, Jalen Brunson committed his 5th foul and exited the game with about 8 minutes, 48 seconds left in the game. He didn't come back to the final 2 minutes when Cat obviously did the bulk of this damage to help the Knicks win this basketball game. We see the Pacers as deep, and we know the offensive team that they are. I feel like watching this game, I'm like, okay, he didn't have a choice because Brunson was in foul trouble, and he had to insert Miles McBride, and Landry Shamet got minutes. I feel like the Knicks almost trust their bench right now more than the Pacers do. I mean, if you look at the box score of game 3, it is fascinating to watch where it's, okay, yeah, sure, the starters played 30-ish minutes, but Obi Toppin only got 14 minutes. Didn't he have the kind of the game-stealing dunk in game 1? That's weird. And Tony Bradley got minutes. Benedict Mathurin 8, TJ McConnell 15. You got that Shepherd kid coming off the bench giving you 17 minutes. I feel like in a weird way that Rick Carlisle is kind of grasping for straws to a certain degree. Now, maybe I'm overreacting to a game 3 of a series. I didn't put it on social media. And again, we didn't do shows in between the end of the second round and now. I had Thunder in 5 because I think they just completely outmatched the T-Wolves. As much as I hate to watch Oklahoma City offensively get to that in about 5 to 10 minutes or so. And I had Knicks against the Pacers, Knicks winning that series in a decisive 7 game at Madison Square Garden. Still feel that way. But you look at this, you say, what's more likely? Karl-Anthony Towns going crazy in the fourth quarter, which, again, he hasn't gone this crazy except once in his career, of the first 10 years of his career. What's more likely, that or Aaron Nesmith going nuclear in the fourth quarter of game 1? Cat's obviously the better player. That is why I trust the Knicks more in this series. It is Tibbs, again, by virtue of the Brunson foul trouble, he had to go to his bench. Will he do that in game 4, especially on the road? Probably not. But in a game 5 in a series that I think is going to be 2-2, I think the Knicks are going to win game 4, not this up 2 apiece. And now we got a fun best of 3 after that between two teams that obviously had some classic playoff battles in the 90s. Not close to as exciting because those teams couldn't break 80. But the point is, could I see that happening? Absolutely. And who do I trust more in that spot? As much as I love Halliburton, the clutchest player in the NBA, showed it to you again. I mean, Halliburton shooting 91% in the clutch, or at least in a situation where it's shot to tie or win the game. Halliburton is shooting 91% from the field this season, which is just doesn't even make sense. With that being said, and I love Siakam. I think the Knicks have taken the Pacers' best punch. I think the Pacers have had their miracle this series. I say miracle. You're like, well, Halliburton's done that before. He didn't do it Kawhi style, okay? And it's not to take credit away from the shot. It was a great shot, but the layup he beat the Bucks. That's Tyrese Halliburton doing Tyrese Halliburton things. The shot to beat Cleveland, which was identical in terms of how he took it to the mid-range, brought it back out, then shot the 3. That was buckets. Nothing but the bottom against Cleveland. And in this case, he needed a friendly bounce from the basketball gods, if you will. The Pacers have had their miracle this series. Who's to say the Knicks won't have theirs? And so I still think the Knicks are the better team this series. Now, again, if the Pacers win game 4, not shocked. Would I rule out the Knicks? No. Of course not, because again, I do think they have the higher upside, better team in this series. So I'm very excited to see how this continues to play out. Game 4 is tomorrow night. In Indiana, Pacers are, this feels fair, about a 2.5-point favorite. This is kind of a go either way type of series, the way we thought it would be. And listen, for those that are like, gosh darn it, man, the teams that are up 2-1 are the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. 2 small markets. No one's going to watch the finals. I'll say this because you know how I'm about, man, big markets in big series. It's just better for the sport. But the way they played and the way, particularly with Indiana, as exciting as their playoff run has been, I think it's a fun series. By the way, I think the Knicks, if the Knicks are in, great. Fun team, hard-nosed, physical, Brunson's clutch, Tibbs, no one really trusts in these playoff series as it goes deeper, games 5, 6, 7. But it's a big market New York team against what I presume to be Oklahoma City. I still think they're going to win this series. I'll get into how the Minnesota Timberwolves could win it in just a moment. But my man Paris Brown is in the comments, who's a big Pacers fan, big Indianapolis sports fan. Pacers went up by 20 and acted like the game was over. We haven't made those comebacks, and the Knicks have done it. Mathurin has been terrible in this series. He has to either step up or get less minutes. Kind of my point, Paris, is that's sort of the weird dynamic is Tibbs doesn't trust his bench and Carlisle loves his. It's not necessarily Carlisle doesn't love the Pacers bench, but he might be forced or love his bench general as a basketball rule, but he might be forced to go away from it because we know as series get longer, as we get to game 5, 6, and 7, that favors the better starting 5. They play 45 minutes. Now the Knicks are kind of used to it. The starting 5 and not really the starting 5, the top 4 in their starting 5, Mitchell Robinson, obviously we don't include him in that discussion with Josh Hart, who comes off the bench and gives you pretty much everything. It's going to be fun to watch. So I'd be very curious to see how game 4 plays out. I like the Knicks in that spot, but we'll be able to react to that come Wednesday's show. Very excited. And again, very excited to be back in the studio, back home in Tennessee. Again, I'll sort of at the end of the show touch on my sort of brief 4-month stint in Florida. It was fantastic. I mean, I basically got to live and work at Disney World. Like, I mean, that's kind of a bucket list thing for me. So that was unbelievable. Get to that at the end of today's show. Shifting to the conference finals out west. Game 4 tonight. Timberwolves trailed 2-1. They tried to even the series up at 2 games apiece. The Thunder on the road are a 3.5-point favorite, which feels pretty fair to me. So listen, I came into the series feeling that Oklahoma City was head and shoulders better than Minnesota. Not to discredit the T-Wolves playoff run to this point, but they beat a Lakers team. Now, again, listen, I thought the Lakers would beat the T-Wolves. I thought the Warriors, obviously with Steph Curry, would beat the Timberwolves. But you beat Golden State without Steph Curry. Kudos. Julius Randle was awesome in that series. Give him all the love in the world for taking Draymond Green to the cleaners. Not a lot of guys have done that against one of the greatest defenders of all time. Julius Randle did that. Julius has been great. All the playoff Randle things, maybe that was just he didn't fit with Jalen Brunson thing, and that's why he struggled. Julius Randle has been big time in these playoffs. But let's be real, Steph Curry was on the floor. The Warriors would have won that series. But then even in round 1, there's the Luka sickness combined with the out of shape. Bronze 40. JJ Redick saw that and said, you know what I should do? Play all of my 5 best players the entire second half of a do or die game 4. I still don't really know what he's thinking. But they won those series in the fashion that they did against a Thunder team that did what we thought they would do against the Memphis Grizzlies, the worst team in the postseason. And then the second round, they took Denver's best punch. They took Jokic's best punch. They said, hey, we're not going to blink. We're going to blow the doors off you in a game 7 in our home building. They won 68 games, best defense in the sport, MVP of the league, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which, listen, he was awarded the MVP during the little break I had. Fully deserving. As critical, and I'll get into this, as I've been of SGA's style of play as it relates to how the question is him not getting to the line, not him getting to the line. It's how he gets to the line. I thought SGA was a more than deserving MVP. Respect to Jokic, put up an had unbelievable numbers this season. But I think when you talk about what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has done, winning 68 games as the best player on a team that is excellent, but is not as talented as previous 65-plus win teams in the past. A lot of those guys have had multiple Hall of Famers. Maybe the Thunder will. Maybe Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren can develop into that guy. Still way too early to tell. SGA, to me, was a absolutely deserving MVP, and he would have gotten my vote. And so I had them in 5 games of the T-Wolves in the series, and frankly, I don't feel that different. I think they win game 4 tonight, and they clinch the series and advance to the finals in game 5 on Wednesday night. But let's play devil's advocate. Let's look at the Timberwolves side of this, because you could say, okay, Home team is held serve. Series didn't start until a road team wins, which I think is going to happen tonight. I got OKC. But let's say the Timberwolves win tonight. Let's say that the physicality that they brought to the table in a game 3 where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was not good at all. We can look at Shai's numbers here. 4 for 13, 2 for 5 from 3. Only had 14 points in that basketball game. For the record, only got to the line 4 times. Now, my thing on this whole SGA thing, that really, I've been a critic of SGA style play. I've said it's Harden-esque, not quite in the way Harden is, or Harden used to get to the line in cheap, foul baity type of ways. It's a different take on it, but he still does it the same way, contorting his body into weird angles that don't even look like natural basketball moves, getting to the free throw line, drawing contact when there actually wasn't any contact multiple times in that Denver series that Oklahoma City won. And it was so bad in game 1 of this series against the T-Wolves, it started a national conversation about, is SGA the player we think he is? Now, SGA is so supremely gifted offensively. The man is a guard and shot 51% from the field. Come on. He can be great without that. That's kind of my main thing is SGA. You're an awesome player. You're an elite top 5 level player without that. So don't incorporate that in your game. It's cheap, it's gimmicky, and it makes the game hard to watch. I think that has almost affected games 2 and 3 in this way. Game 2, he's awarded the MVP in front of the adoring crowds in Oklahoma City, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was... Well, he looked like the MVP in that game. He had, do we have the numbers here? Yeah, he had 38 points, 8 assists. He was awesome. 12 for 21 from the field. But in that game, and in game 3, officials weren't calling the ticky-tack, foul baity, fouls that Shai has gotten all season long. It has almost affected the conversation. Let's say that continues. Timberwolves are a hard-nosed defensive team. Let's say Ant Edwards, who, I don't know, it's a weird stat I saw today. It's going around. Again, odd number. Greatest game 4 scorer in NBA playoffs history is Anthony Edwards, who averages about 34 points per game. For context, Michael Jordan averaged 30. Okay, I think it was 30, 32, somewhere in that ballpark. Anthony Edwards, greatest game 4 scorer in the history of the NBA playoffs. Okay, if that holds up, if Julius Randle continues to do his thing, if the more experienced playoff coach, Chris Finch, continues to make the necessary adjustments, because for the record, I know folks who believe in the Thunder fans could dismiss that game 3 shellacking as T-Wolves are desperate, Thunder on the road, they look like the far better team in the first 2 games. It happens. Bad stuff happens. They even had SGA mic'd up, and they played it during the game on ABC, which I thought was interesting, where he was saying, hey, we make these little adjustments. We still lose this game probably because we lost by 42 points, but it's a closer game with Minnesota playing their A-plus game was essentially what Shai was saying, and that's a perfectly reasonable take to have. But there's never been an NBA champion ever that has lost by 40 points in a playoff game, ever. Ironically, 3 of the last 4 champions, if you look at the 2021 Bucks, the 2022 my Golden State Warriors, and the 2024 Celtics just last year, all have 38 or 39 point losses on their resume. Although I will say in the case of the Celtics in 24 and the Warriors in 22, those losses came in games they really didn't have to win. The Warriors lost a game 5 at Memphis when they were up 3-1. Okay, whatever. They closed them out in 6. And the Celtics were up 3-0 at Dallas. Mavs' whole championship season was on the line. They lost game 4, came back to ride them in game 5. So those didn't matter. Bucks lost a game 2, ended up winning that series against the Nets. But you lose by 40. Historically, you lose by 40 in a playoff game, you don't win the championship. It's that simple. Now, I don't think that is how we should necessarily break down whether Oklahoma City is going to win it, but it is something. It is something for a Timberwolves team that at times couldn't quite pull away from a Warriors team without Steph Curry on it, that they shellacked you, blew the doors off you. So devil's advocate, maybe the Timberwolves do have a shot to win the series. After all, Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Anthony Edwards is an all-time, this is a weird thing to say, but an all-time great game 4 player. And this T-Wolves team did go to the conference finals last year, and you have to imagine they've learned from some of those mistakes late in those close games. That's what I'm fascinated to see is that OKC has not been in a lot of close games this year. And this is what I was concerned with. I picked them against Denver because I thought they were a better team than Denver. Obviously they were. I did see a lot from Oklahoma City. Close game 4, pulled away. Close game in game 5. Did what they had to do to win that game at home with Jalen Williams and SGA closing the door at the end. Can they do it against a T-Wolves team that really lost the Western Conference Finals to the Mavs last year because they couldn't close the close games against Luka and Kyrie? It's something. So, listen, I still think the Thunder are going to win tonight. I think they're going to win Game 5. I think this is a quick series. I think they're a far better team, far deeper team, far better. They're one of the best defensive teams we've seen in years in the NBA, almost akin to like the 04 Pistons with Billups. But you could see a path to the Timberwolves winning this series. And so that's, again, playing devil's advocate, it's on the board. It is on the board. And again, last point on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that I'll make. Because, again, I've seen Jay Williams and other analytic stat gurus talk about, come on, the man doesn't get to the line as much as some of these MVPs, some of these all-time great MVPs did in their MVP winning season. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. These were all far greater by the numbers foul baiters or free throw merchants, if you will. That's the thing has been getting tossed around on NBA Twitter than SGA has been this season. That, to me, is missing the point. It's not just that Shai gets to the line as much as he does, which he obviously did in Game 1, despite an atrocious shooting performance from the field. It's how he gets to the line. It's the gimmicky turning his body inside. I remember there was a game, I think it was against Boston this regular season, where he literally shot the ball almost from his side. It was a weird angle. It was odd. Even the games against Oklahoma City, again, falling down, throwing stuff up when there's minimal contact, that's gimmicky stuff, and it's not fun to watch. And I've said privately, and I'll say it on the show today, that of the 4 teams left, Oklahoma City, for that reason, unless it changes, is kind of the only team that I'm actively rooting against to win the championship. And so, now, by the way, if the pushback and the fallout from Game 1 of this Western Conference Finals affects the rest of the postseason, where SGA continues to try to do that and it doesn't work, and then he readjusts because he's a great player, he's deserving MVP, mid-range master, finishing all of it, and Oklahoma City goes on to win the title, okay, great. Congrats for Oklahoma City. That's a great fan base. SGA is a good dude, great player. Got no problems with that. Built their team to the draft. Sam Presti, the mastermind GM that he is. I got no problems with that. But I'll be curious to see if that continues to materialize over the course of the series and beyond if Oklahoma City does, in fact, get to the NBA Finals. Again, I'll say it is so great to be back in studio and carving it up. We're live on Instagram and on YouTube. Again, for those that might be watching the show on Instagram, welcome. Feel free to tune in. Hopefully the show is working. Again, I'm looking on my Instagram account. I see nothing. But again, I didn't see that last time. Talked to somebody after. They said they saw the show on IG. So anyone on IG, feel free to chime in the comment section throughout the course of the show, wherever you're watching, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We'll be back after the break to discuss the Tush Push remaining, barely, by 2 votes, remaining a part of the Philadelphia Eagles and the National Football League as a whole after the break in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Back to Carving Up Live, once again, back in studio for the first time since early January. I think right before the NFL playoffs was the last time that we did a show from here. Happy to be back, happy to be live once again. Nothing against those pre-tape shows, but I'm telling you, I don't want to say that for the birds, but man, the live stuff, interacting with the audience at a set time, like this is where it's at. So shifting now to the NFL, the Green Bay Packers. And I almost thought about bringing out my Cheesehead Ozzy look for the show, but I didn't because I actually kind of agree with them, so I can't do that. They lost, but I was kind of on their side in all this. So the Green Bay Packers put together a proposition. At least they were the face of it. Maybe the behest of the commissioner, Roger Goodell, who reportedly wanted this to come to fruition. We're the head of the snake of what wanted the Philadelphia Eagles and primarily their Tush Push to get banned from the National Football League. And they put it to a vote last week, and it needed 2/3 of the league to vote for it. If that happened, the Tush Push would be no more. Very close, 32 teams, 24 of them you would have needed to get the 2/3. 22-10 was your final score. Ironically, also the final score of the Eagles' playoff win over the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round, which was, man, I don't believe in football gods, but man, that makes you question some things. So the Tush Push remains. There are teams like Philadelphia who do use that play, like the Buffalo Bills, who I think by a slim margin, by like 1%, were actually more successful last regular season than Philly at incorporating that play in terms of it turning into a first down on like 3rd and 4th and short plays. By the way, it couldn't work against the Kansas City Chiefs because it wasn't quite as detailed as Philadelphia's is. It was mostly just, we got a big 6'6" quarterbacks, 6'6", 250. Let's just push them. Whereas Philadelphia, it's the center. It's Jalen Hurts. We're going to get Saquon Barkley involved to push him forward. For this year, for the 2025 NFL season, I'm happy it didn't go through. Because what it would have said is, okay, because there was discussion last year, but before the 2024 season, if that play would get banned. It is, well, we won the Super Bowl. We went 16-1 down the stretch after our bye. We got, or at least after our 2-2 start, when, I was probably the front of the train that was like, I don't think the Eagles are that good based on how they finished the 2023 season. They get off to a 2-2 start. I'm calling for their head coach to get fired. And after that point, they went 16-1 and blew the doors off of the dynasty, the back-to-back champion, Kansas City Chiefs. They're the champions. Jalen Hurts is the man of the NFL. I think he was on the front cover of Time magazine recently. Saquon Barkley's beloved, all of it. And you take away our most effective play. Sounds kind of salty to me. Sounds like you are jealous. Sounds like you don't believe there's any way to stop us other than we're going to literally, by rule, get rid of our most successful play. I'm not kidding when I say, I think there were two things that impacted this not getting banned. Number one is Jason Kelce, former center for the Eagles, who actually wasn't a part of last year's team, but one of the greatest centers of the 21st century, really, one of the greatest Eagles ever, was part of the meetings, was the lead of the contingent saying, do not ban this play. I think that played factor. I think the other side of this was, it's not just the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It's that they, again, embarrassed the Chiefs. 1 point led 34-zip. 40-22 was the final score. Not indicative of that football game, as we all know. I think it's on the board that if the Eagles have won that game 27-24, that play might actually get banned. Because listen, it's not like the Tush Push. Again, it's a 3-yard play. Like, it's not like it's this 50-yard unstoppable. There's no defense for it. It's literally there's nothing to stop it type of play. There's nothing to stop it, but it only gets you a few yards. What it really does is it makes it 1st and 8 as opposed to 1st and 10 for the Philadelphia Eagles because they're so good at using it. Let's say Philly, really this falls at Matt Stafford's feet if we're going to think about this. Or Jalen Carter, whoever you want to blame, one side or the other. Well, the LA Rams are driving down the field. They've got the ball in the red zone with a half minute to go against Philadelphia. If Jalen Carter does not make that play on Matt Stafford, I think the Rams win that football game, knock out the Eagles. Frankly, I think the Rams go to the Super Bowl at that point, but whatever. I think this play gets banned. Because Eagles fans will say, oh, can't stop us. He had to ban it. Yeah, but what did it get you? It got you to a Super Bowl in 2022, but then you absolutely fell apart at the end of 2023, and you were great in 24, but you couldn't get to the NFC Championship game with home field advantage in a snowy atmosphere in the divisional round. Sorry, we don't feel bad for you. Whereas if it's you win the Super Bowl, oh, and then you strip our best play, it looks kind of salty. It looks kind of, it almost looks to a degree like juvenile. Oh, you can't stop us. You're just going to take away our best play. So for this year, for 2025, there's a part of me kind of glad it didn't get banned. Moving forward, I hope it does. If the Eagles do not go back-to-back, which history says doesn't happen very much, if in the last 3 decades, if you don't have Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, you do not go back-to-back as a Super Bowl champion. If that history holds up, and the respect to Jalen Hurts, he has shown me a ton. He's not those two guys. If the Eagles lose the divisional round NFC Championship game, heck, Super Bowl, and it gets banned before the 2026 season, got no problem with that. No problem. It is Not just because people talk about the safety. Jeffrey Lurie, who's the owner of the Eagles, is one of the best owners in the NFL. He came out and said, actually, might be one of the safest plays in the NFL. I mean, has Jalen Hurts ever gotten hurt on that play? Has one of our offensive linemen ever gotten hurt? He's presented that case, and it's fair. To me, this isn't about safety. It's bad television. And I'll use an NBA example to prove my point. The Celtics this season, now they didn't go on to win the title, but to start the year, remember it was opening night against the Knicks. And that was supposed to be, man, that's a fun opening night game. Celtics get their rings, and the Knicks, who made these moves, Mikal Bridges, Cat, Knicks ended up beating them in the playoffs, but that was, what are we going to see here? And the Celtics just smoked them. Why? Because they made a million threes. Celtics smoked a lot of teams this year. Why? Because they made a million threes. And when they lost, it's because they didn't make a million threes. They were kind of I don't want to say a one-trick pony, because there's a lot of depth and size and all of it to the Boston Celtics. But the numbers kind of, the tail of the tape, they hit their threes, they won. They missed their threes, they lost. And it was kind of like, man, it'd be nice if a team maybe had a bad shooting night and won a scrappy, tough game against the Knicks in the second round. That's why I said during that series when the Knicks went up 2-0 and it looked like, Boston's about to fall, even before the terrible Tatum injury, it's kind of good for the NBA if the team in the league that employs a strategy that is atrocious television gets knocked out. Now, the thing is, the tush push isn't Philadelphia's only play. If Philadelphia, if that's the only play they're in start to finish, and they just went 5 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, yeah, it would get banned mid-season. That's kind of the example I use. I mean, there were points mid-season, folks, when the NBA wasn't quite as popular as we were hoping, and then the Luka trade happens, the Jimmy Butler trade happens, a number of things, and these playoffs have been awesome, the ratings have been off the charts, is that there were discussions. Should we get rid of the corner three? Should we cap how many times a team is allowed to shoot threes? That was how bad it was getting, mostly led by the Boston Celtics. It was not a fun product to watch, which is why it's kind of good that I got knocked out in the second round. Because if that strategy that is not entertaining, and sports, above all else, is an entertainment product, if that went on to win back-to-back titles, NBA's kind of got a problem on their hands. Philadelphia Eagles, a little bit of almost a first cousin of that. So I do hope it gets banned. I'm happy it didn't get banned this year. It's close. Most of the league wants it banned. More than double the league wants it banned. But it would have came off as, we pretty much cruised to, outside of the Rams game, we pretty much cruised to Super Bowl, won 14 games. Saquon was the offensive player of the year. Jalen is maybe a top 5 quarterback in some people's list. Oh, and you took away our best play. That's kind of salty. It's kind of BS if you ask us. If the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl, which, again, history says you don't go back-to-back if you don't have Brady or Mahomes in the last 30 years, probably a good thing. So that's kind of my take on that. So, by the way, Elway, too. I forgot to mention John Elway. John Elway in the last 30 years went back-to-back. But that was older Elway. That was kind of the Terrell Davis. So there you go. So basically, if you don't have one of the 5 best quarterbacks of all time, you do not go back-to-back. That's kind of the story of the NFL in the last, really for the majority of Super Bowl history. So there you go. All right, sticking in the NFL, transitioning to my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm absolutely disgusted with them right now. Their starting quarterback is Mason Rudolph, which I am in the ultra minority. That would be perfectly fine if Mason Rudolph is QB1 in week 1 and in week 18 and every game in between. Because my mindset is Mason Rudolph, good backup, good locker room guy. Players like him. He's been in Pittsburgh. He started a playoff game 2 seasons ago. He's fine. He's a good backup in the NFL, and he'll probably win 6-7 games, and you can finally, it's not even bottoming out. That'll get you about, the 9th pick of the draft, 10th pick, depending on how many games you win, tiebreakers, all that, and you can finally address your glaring hole at quarterback with a high upside prospect. Notice I said replace with high upside. Kenny Pickett was drafted first round 2022. They tried to replace Ben Roethlisberger. Kenny Pickett was like a 3rd round talent, to be frank. That was a very weak quarterback draft. It was Brock Purdy was the best QB in that draft, and who's second? Malik Willis. It was bad. It was a bad QB draft in 2022. And yet and still, with all of this in mind for Pittsburgh, they just continue to let Aaron Rodgers, who is not a Steeler, as of this live show, May 26th. OTA start tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers, with no teams really left in terms of who would sign him, and he would be the guaranteed day one starter. Pittsburgh's the last one on the list. I guess Cleveland would be, but Cleveland's drafted 2 quarterbacks. Teams that have either drafted their quarterbacks or have their guy that they believe is their number one guy and would never start Aaron Rodgers for that reason. Pittsburgh's the only team left, and he is not in Pittsburgh. And Aaron clearly wants to play this season. After all, he hasn't retired yet. He's gone on this recent podcast story. He was on Rogan. He was on this other show that we're going to play this clip from, or at least the audio from this clip from, where he was asked by a fan, hey, it's kind of a funny question. He's taking questions from the audience. A good old time. Fan in the audience asked, would you sign with the Chicago Bears? It's obviously not going to happen. They have Caleb Williams, but would you sign with Chicago Bears? And here was Mr. Rogers' answer. Take a listen.
Did Aaron Rodgers ever go to the Bears?
Oh, boy. Security, can we get her out of here? I need some security. Security,
can you take it easy on her on this one?
No, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year.
Let's go!
On a road trip. I don't know. I'm not sure. Gotta check it out.
I've done enough Aaron Rodgers rants on my show, and I'm sure when he's a Steeler, it's going to happen, guys. I'll have plenty down the road this football season. Heck, maybe even training camp, if he's signed by then. This, to me, is not an Aaron Rodgers story. It's a Pittsburgh Steelers story. So on the Aaron side of it, real quick on the Aaron side of it before I get to Pittsburgh. We know Aaron is a guy who, Aaron is really smart. Like, I'm not BSing when I say Aaron is man went to Cal. He's a very smart individual, very intelligent. But this is the quality that, and I'm no psychologist, but that a lot of narcissists have is they not only to try to be the smartest person in the rooms where maybe they're not quite the smartest person in the room, even if they are intelligent, but think they're slick and are trying to be a mystery. Aaron Rodgers has always done that. The Darkness Retreat, which for the record, he actually didn't even complete. All of it. You know, it's a beautiful mystery. It depends on the day. You never know where I might be. I might play with a team that could play on the road, make a road trip to old Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, the Steelers play the Bears in Week 12 in Chicago. He's not slick. And people said, oh, maybe he's holding out for the Vikings. I think they kind of want to see what J.J. McCarthy's got. They've got a loaded offensive roster. Kevin O'Connell's a smart coach. Hey, Sam Darnold did that last year. Darnold's got high upside, but Darnold won 14 games with that team last year. What can our first-round pick, who we traded picks to get, do? How's Aaron Rodgers going to serve the Vikings in any way, shape, or form? He's obviously going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, which transitions to the Steelers side of it. Why are they kowtowing to this guy? Why are they just letting this dude manipulate them? Because folks can say, well, what if he's maybe serious about retirement, but or the Steelers just aren't interested, and that's why he isn't signed there. If that were true, why is the report out that the Steelers are reportedly, according to Jeremy Fowler, have got an eye on Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, who I've said at this point, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, kind of the same player. Old, recently off an Achilles. Now, the problem with Kirk is Kirk's going to be a lot more expensive, we imagine, than Aaron, because you'll have to trade for him from Atlanta. But all of those factors come in. They just seem to be interested in old wash quarterbacks, apparently. Why are the Pittsburgh Steelers interested? I've showed this graphic over and over and over, and I will show it once more. Why are they interested in this guy? Who since 2022, you see the numbers. 56 touchdowns, 23 picks, especially considering that he missed a whole season. Not bad numbers, actually pretty good. But completes 63% of his throws, 22 passers per game. Passer rating, Aaron is the king of passer rating. I mean, if you look at some of those MVP years, his passer rating was nuts, off the charts, like 115, 120, 90 passer rating since 2022. He is 8 games under 500, 13-21. He has 0 playoff wins since COVID. He has 0 Pro Bowls since 2021. His final season in Green Bay, as we all know, plays every game. Same Packers roster that the year after a young Jordan Love led to the playoffs, smoked Dallas, almost beat the Niners to get to the NFC title game. Aaron, with that same group of guys, went 8-9, lost a home game against a young Detroit Lions team with a shot to make the playoffs, and his final pass as a Packer, down 4, was an interception. He then goes to the Jets. The Achilles thing happens. It's awful. It's terrible. He come back the next year, and the Jets go 5-12. coach gets fired. They trade for Devontae. That's going to fix everything, except it doesn't. And the Steelers are just letting this guy manipulate them. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the 6-time Super Bowl champions, tied for first all time with the New England Patriots. The Mike Tomlin, the no BS, the standard is the standard. Football first coach is, well, let's see what he does. Let's wait on Aaron. You know, I know his numbers say he's an average quarterback at this stage of his career, slightly above average on a good day. Let's see what he does. And if he doesn't work, if he does retire, or if something crazy happens and he does sign with the Vikings, completing the Brett Favre cycle, and guess who we're going to go after that? Kirk Cousins, who's not only old, but expensive. Makes on average like $45 million a year. Let's go get Kirk, who was awful the second half of last year, got benched for the young rookie Michael Penix Jr., who I have a lot of faith and confidence in. All of those things. Let's just go with old wash. Let's win 7, 8. Let's really go for 9 wins so we can keep this really kind of meaningless, non-losing season streak alive, so it can play to our coach's ego and make us a fringe playoff team who, if we don't get in, we have the 16th pick, and if we do get in, we get absolutely mauled by a team with an elite quarterback like the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, or Baltimore Ravens. That is the cycle of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And evidently they seem so addicted to it, they'll sign a washed quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Or, even better, they'll trade for a washed, certainly less drama, but more expensive quarterback in Kirk Cousins. They will give up assets for a guy who may not even be in the team the next year and cannot get you further than 9 or 10 wins. I've asked Mike Tomlin over and over on this show rhetorically, what is the standard? Is it championships? Is it competing for that 7th title to Pittsburgh, a once proud franchise? Or is it let's keep above that 500. Let's keep this really meaningless streak alive. Mr. Football First guy said, you know what? Or appears to be saying, hey, the guy who's the biggest distraction in the National Football League at the quarterback position, the guy who, unless something happens in the next 24 hours, will miss another OTAs. 2nd straight year. That will have been the case for Aaron Rodgers. While the Steelers players, while the Cam Haywards and the TJ Watts, we presume, I know there's the contract stuff, we'll see with that. But while DK Metcalf, who doesn't even know who his quarterback's going to be, and it's freaking May, is going to, I mean, the only ups, I guess, can come from this is, hey, maybe Will Howard shows us something, which I don't believe is going to happen. God bless Will Howard. Seems like a good kid, national champion, all of it. I do not see the upside for him to be a franchise quarterback, particularly in an offensive system that does not cater well to young quarterbacks. While they're going to be busting their behind, sweating, getting out there, getting it, getting ready for this upcoming season in 4 months, you're chilling doing podcasts with Joe Rogan. And that's the guy that Mike Tomlin says, hey, let's bring him in. Even though, can we show the stats one more time? That's what you'll be getting. That's what you'll be getting. By the way, one of those years comes with Matt LaFleur and the Green Bay Packers. It's unbelievable. I can't even get mad at Aaron at this point because he's doing exactly what he always does. Bringing attention to himself as opposed to just sign with the only team that really is interested in signing you. I may play for a team that plays the Chicago Bears on the road. I mean, he thinks he's slick. Like, I can't even get mad at him at this point. I will do it during the season. Don't worry. There'll be plenty of carving up the context on Aaron Rodgers. But as far as Pittsburgh gets, man, how much has this franchise lowered the bar? It's unbelievable. Comments from my man Patrick Brown. If the Steelers sign Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood, it's going to be a soap opera and then one subliminal shot after another. That's kind of what he does. Patrick, remember, the Packers were glad to let Aaron go, and they enjoyed winning. I can't see. Let me get this a little bit bigger on my computer screen. Let me read that again. Remember, the Packers were glad to let Aaron go, and they enjoyed winning. No drama, bull jive, and everything was giving Jordan Love his flowers. And again, listen, they knew more about Jordan Love than any of us. And there was an element of, hey, Aaron's first mediocre season, we're going to move on to see what we got in this kid because we did use a first-round pick on him. We kind of need to see if he can play or not. But if Jordan Love wasn't that good 3 years in, based on what they'd seen in practice, remember, he actually got off to a rough start the first half of that year. They could have said, hey, nobody drafts quarterbacks better than us. Let's bite the bullet. Let's draft a quarterback in 2023. Nope, that's not what they did. Couldn't wait to let him go. I mean, Aaron ghosts the franchise Says his phone service isn't working or something in Malibu of all places. And then when the Packers like, okay, screw this guy, we're gonna move on. And then Aaron's like, Mr. Gutekunst, the GM, why don't you want to meet with me? I thought we're chums, buddy. Hey, this guy. Let's transition now to a guy who is now very well compensated. And is, while he may not have the upside of Aaron Rodgers, or at least prime Aaron Rodgers, is certainly a much better leader, team-first guy than Aaron is. I'm talking, of course, about San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, Sturdy Purdy, as they used to call him back in the day, who signed, this is a 2-week-ago story, but still, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about it in this span, signed a 5-year, $265 million contract with the San Francisco 49ers, $181 million guaranteed. So Brock Purdy is going to be one of the 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league moving forward, at least as the quarterback contracts look now. We'll see down the road if they continue to progress, guys like Stroud and Jaden Daniels and guys like that. Bo Nix, maybe. So let's give the full Brock Purdy context. And of course, this is our segment we love to do once a week. It is time for carving up the context. So, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, wanted to talk about Brock Purdy signing this long-term extension with the San Francisco 49ers. To give the full context and the Brock Purdy story, one must go to the beginning, where all stories begin. So, he's drafted, famously, Mr. Irrelevant, 2022. Jimmy Garoppolo's the starters. Obviously, zero expectations Purdy is going to be anything more than a backup in San Francisco. And there's some injuries to Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to be the starter. He's going to be the 3rd overall pick from 2021. He is going to lead us nowhere past our first opening game loss to the Bears because he breaks his leg in week 2. And we have to go back to Jimmy G, who we were trying to trade. Well, the Niners get off to a rough start. Then they trade for Christian McCaffrey, and they are the best team in football, really, the second half of that 2022 regular season until Jimmy Garoppolo suffers a lower body injury against the Miami Dolphins. Brock Purdy, 7th-round rookie, who's the 3rd stringer coming into the season, is now the starter for an elite championship expectation franchise and plays really well. They win against Miami. Then in his first start of his career, he's facing the GOAT himself, Tom Brady, and the Tampa Bay Bucks, who obviously weren't that good of a team that year, but still, first start, some big expectations, and has an awesome game. They get hot, second half of the year, they stay hot rather, win a playoff game against Seattle, win a playoff game against Dallas, and then Brock Purdy injures his elbow in the NFC title game against Philadelphia. Comes back, MVP caliber season, Niners get to the Super Bowl, and if not for the greatness of one Patrick Mahomes, they probably win that Super Bowl. And then last year, injuries, and we'll get to that side of it in just a little bit. Injuries plagued the Niners all season 3 or 4th quarter of 2022 numbers. And he is signed to a long-term extension with all of that context on the board for San Francisco to see. I have been labeled by interactions that I've had on social media when it comes to Brock Purdy as a Purdy hater, which could not be further from the truth. First of all, as a guy, I love Purdy. I think he's a great leader. I think his intangibles are really, really strong. I think he was, I don't want to say even dealt a bad hand because there was a reason he was Mr. Relevant. He was a good college quarterback at Iowa State. He was productive, longtime starter, but there was a reason he was a 7th-round pick in a terrible quarterback draft that year in 2022. But obviously, he's more than outperformed his draft status. Go back and do that draft again. He's the first quarterback off the board, no questions asked. And folks have said, what do you see this guy as Jimmy G 2.0? No, I don't. I don't. And some out there, not to name names, but a guy I have a lot of respect for, Nick Wright, has said he's basically Jimmy G 2.0. I don't think he is. Because Jimmy G, in my estimation, especially you look at some of those playoff games, oh my gosh, Jimmy G was not a good starting quarterback in the NFL. He was lifted clearly by Kyle Shanahan. And for 2022, at least, McCaffrey. And for longer than that, Debo and Kittle and a great offensive line and a great defense. I mean, he was winning playoff games, throwing 8 passes in the NFC title game against the Packers. Like, what are we talking about? His playoff numbers are atrocious if you look at Jimmy Garoppolo. Purdy came in and has had really good playoff games. against the Seahawks and against the Detroit Lions in the second half of that game. He's a good playoff starts, got a winning record in the postseason, and has been impactful in all of those wins to certain degrees. Jimmy G never was. So he is not Jimmy G 2.0. I do not subscribe to that line of thinking, and those that do, I think aren't watching. And I also don't subscribe to clear top 10 quarterback. And the numbers say it. He's like top 7 in every major statistical category since coming into the league in 2022. And to that I say, okay, let's use common sense. Let's use logic. If his first 2 years, or really year and a quarter in the NFL, so all of 2023, the fourth quarter of 2022 when he came in for Garoppolo, if under the context of Jimmy G is not that good, he's immobile, can't stay healthy, noodle arm, accuracy hit or miss, not a good decision maker. If he can get to 2 NFC title games and a Super Bowl with this roster, just about anybody can make this work. Well, Brock Purdy, I don't think is in the just another guy crew. I think Jimmy G is in that crew, which is why they could win even though they had Jimmy G as their quarterback. Purdy's quite a few notches above that. But if with that cast, you are awesome, like top 3, top 4 quarterback, better numbers than Mahomes, in some cases better numbers than Allen, better than the best of the best. With those guys. And without those guys, you're a decent starter. Maybe fine. I mean, pretty good. Is it fair for us to ask questions about where you're at, somewhere in between that you're not a bad player, but you're also not an awesome player relative to the best that the NFL has to offer at the quarterback position? Because we can show you the numbers I've showed this before, with these 5. And one of those guaranteed will not be a 49er next year or moving forward. Deebo Samuel. With Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams. This is what Brock Purdy was. Unbelievable. 29 touchdowns, 3 picks completed. Let's call that 70% of his throws. 266 pass yards per game, a passer rating of 120. I mean, that's like prime Rodgers numbers right there in terms of the pass rating. 13-1 record. That one loss was in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs when Purdy was pretty good in that game. Without those guys, he's not that good. Oh, rather, that's a bad. Sorry, we'll show that graphic in just a second. My bad. He's okay. 25 touchdowns, 21 picks, complete 65% of his throws, 259 pass yards per game. Pass rating plummets from 120, which is like prime Rodgers numbers, to 90, which is like current Rodgers numbers. And he's 7-13. Is it fair to ask or presume he's probably a little bit closer to that one than the other one? Because what we saw from a guy who is clearly not as good as him, what we saw him do with that said roster. Is that a fair question to ask? Is it fair to ask the question, man? Because what is the true measure of not a franchise quarterback, but a great quarterback? No doubt we can win a Super Bowl with this guy at the helm. What can he do when things just kind of aren't going his way all the time? Offensive line's beat up. Maybe a receiver is hurt. Running game doesn't have it that day. Now, a lot of more times than not, you're going to lose. But can he give us a shot? Can you put us in position to win that game? And in some cases, you do actually win that football game. Because Josh Allen's done it multiple times. Mahomes, Chiefs offensive line won that great. Mahomes had a really good year. Got the Chiefs to another Super Bowl. Joe Burrow's had a bad offensive line his whole career in Cincinnati. Still puts up awesome numbers. By the way, with no running game last year. If Brock Purdy, which his numbers with his best crew suggest he's as good as those guys I just mentioned, then why is it the time when every quarterback is counted on more than any point? The fourth quarter. Particularly if you're down in the fourth quarter. What does Brock Purdy do in those spots? He is awful in every way, shape, or form. 5 touchdowns, 13 picks. Almost a 1-2-3 touchdown interception ratio, which is unheard of bad. 64% completion and pass rating of 69, which is horrible. Not even league average. Now, I certainly don't think he's that bad of a player. But if in the moments where things aren't quite perfect, you're not that good, it's fair to ask or fair to presume, which I do, you're closer to that guy. Not that guy. I'm not saying he's a bad player because no numbers suggest he's terrible. But I also don't think he's amazing, top 5, no questions asked. That's my point. That is my case. Fact of the matter, oops, let me hit my mic there. Fact of the matter is this. If Jimmy Garoppolo, if that never happens, or rather, Jimmy Garoppolo ended up on the Vegas Raiders next year. If he went out there and balled out, played not quite as well, because the supporting cast in Vegas wasn't as good as San Francisco, as we know, but played pretty well. It was fine. He was top 20 quarterback. He was okay. His starter. I may not have those questions about Purdy. But because we saw Jimmy be, okay, and then terrible without the Niners, when Purdy had all of his guys, MVP of the league potentially. When he doesn't, he's fine. He's okay. I've seen Josh Allen with a lot of imperfect rosters. Same with Mahomes. Same with Joe Burrow. Heck, guys lesser than them. Seen that with Dak Prescott. Seen that with CJ Stroud. It's fair to ask that question. And so, all of that to say, I think the Niners just made a mistake here. I don't think it would have been, because Kyle Shanahan has all the leverage in the world, I would think at least. I know he's the Super Bowls and the struggles there. I understand that. But I think he has enough level. If the Niners, if you put John Lynch in a corner and said, you have to fire one of these people, Brock Purdy or Kyle Shanahan, he fires Purdy, like I think he just does. He moves on from Purdy before he moves on from Kyle. And with the Niners' track record of developing and drafting offensive players, and obviously the way they stack the other side of the ball, particularly in the defensive line, we can find a quarterback that works. Heck, we almost won the Super Bowl with Purdy. We almost won the Super Bowl with freaking Garoppolo. If we get a high upside player, that's the whole point of them drafting Trey Lance and trading all of those picks to get him at number 3 is because, man, this kid has a lot of upside. Problem was, that's all it was upside. He wasn't very good. But that's why they went after him the way that they did. They just happened to stumble into Mr. Irrelevant being much better than they anticipated. So listen, Brock Purdy deserves a contract as a starter in the NFL, but much closer to the Baker Mayfield level, around like mid-30s-esque than, oh, okay, he's in like, Allen territory and Lamar, Jalen Hurt, he's not quite. So there we go. That's kind of my take on it. Like for this week's edition of Carving Out the Context, it's not that Purdy's bad, as some of his haters tried to attest, but is he 13-1 level with a 29-3 touchdown to interception ratio guy? I don't think he's that guy either, unless he has an awesome offensive coach and a stacked offensive roster. So that's where we're at in the San Francisco 49ers. Come back after the break and do like a quick recap sort of my time in Florida at the Disney College program. Just want to tell y'all a little bit about that before we get out of here after our 1-minute break. Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So before we get out of here, I just wanted to quickly, because again, I don't do many segments on like my personal life or whatever's going on, because the fact of the matter is you come in to hear me talk about sports or to talk about anything going on in the world, entertainment, politics. I've talked a number of those things. So as a lot of you know, the last 4 months, I was a part of the Disney College program in Florida. That's why I haven't done a show, or obviously I haven't done many live shows. I haven't done any shows from this particular studio here in Tennessee in really since right before the NFL playoffs, as we talked about earlier. So it was, in a nutshell, absolutely incredible. Listen, I've done actually quite a number of live shows or pre-recorded shows from Disney World prior to me arriving in Orlando, and that's because I love Disney. I've loved Disney World since I was 7 years old when me and my parents and my sister made our first trip in 2011. It's always held a special place in my heart. I love the things that Disney films and TV shows, the great ones, certainly represent. And I love it. The rides, the atmosphere, the theming, all of it. The fact that I got the opportunity to work not just at Disney World, not just in Galaxy's Edge, which is the Star Wars themed area at one of their parks, Disney's Hollywood Studios, but at the freaking Millennium Falcon. And that may sound trivial to someone who maybe isn't a Star Wars fan, but to me, a guy who's done segments as recently as earlier this month during May the 4th on Star Wars, it was special. Doesn't even begin to describe what the experience like. I actually have a picture here that was right early in my training of me right in front of the ship in my vest. You can see my name tag if you zoom in there a little bit. It was better than I could have anticipated. Guests by and large, sure, you had your difficult guests every once in a while. It's a theme park in Florida, for crying out loud. It's hot. Some people are just pissed off. Like I get it, but generally guests were great. Particularly the ones that were like big Star Wars fans. And there was like those fun sort of interactions. The theming that I got to be a part of was unforgettable. And I cherish every one of those experiences. What made it so special, the most special, I should say, not just the fact that I got to work at the most iconic ship in my favorite movie franchise, the fact that it wasn't just the Galaxy's Edge, the fact that on off days I got to go to Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, or Animal Kingdom. Like all of those things were amazing. And the fact that in February, because the Warriors were in town, I got to go see with my family who were in town at the time. I got to go see my favorite player, favorite team, Steph Curry and the Warriors, on a night where Steph Curry happens to have one of the greatest games of his career in the regular season. All of those things. Saw Jalen Hurts right after they won the Super Bowl. I actually got to see John Stamos last month, who came to the area where we live, Flamingo Crossings. All of those things were awesome. It would not have been the experience that it was without the people who were a part of it. And I can actually see in my Instagram tab that's opened, I can see a few of my coworkers have chimed into the show or have tuned into the show via Instagram. And if you guys are watching, and I'll clip this up and put it on social media, you were the guys that made it so special. And I mean that from the depths of my soul. I'm not going to name everybody because I'm going to forget people. Each and every one of you guys made this an incredible experience. I want to thank coordinators at Smuggler's Run. I want to thank the leaders at Galaxy's Edge couldn't have been more kind to me, to everybody there. And if you think, I'll just say this, if you think going to, this is mostly for my Star Wars, fellow fans out there. If you think going to Galaxy's Edge is great, working there is a different experience. Everybody in every department were incredibly nice, kind, accommodating. I made some great friends there. And to all of them, you know who you are. You made this experience a life-changing one. It was, listen, as I always say on my show, two things can be true. It was so great yesterday to get back home, to sleep in my own bed. It is amazing to do the show, particularly live, which I didn't get to do much because of my work schedule, but to do the show live back in my home studio it feels so great. Like nothing against some of the areas where I travel and did the show. It was fun. Like I did a draft show from Flamingo Crossings. It was great, but it's not the same experience than when you're in studio. I can talk all the way to my full volume instead of worry about like being a disturbance to other people. It was, all of those things are true, and I'm happy to be home. But I'm going to miss you guys, all the people that are smugglers, the people that left before me or that have left after me in this program period. I'm going to miss you guys like hell, man. Honest to God. Like you guys were absolutely incredible to work with each and every day. I miss you guys. I'll still stay in contact with y'all. But that was sort of just a brief recap of my college program in Orlando these last 4 months. I had experiences that I never thought I'd get to have as it pertains to different events I get to be a part of and just different people I've met. You guys were really, really great. And I want that on public record. I want this on the show, on YouTube, on social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, all of it. Thank you for making this experience what it was. because as great as it was, absent that, it would not have been what it was without the Disney magic, if you will, that y'all brought to the table. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday. Haven't said that in a while. It is so good for those words to come out. Back in 2 days on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, X, and Instagram. Be sure to check out all of our content on the Carving It Up platform and check out the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your podcast. You can find it at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. We'll catch you on Wednesday. A lot of NBA playoffs going on. NFL, the Rodgers story, I wish it would go away, but it just won't. A lot of things going on right now in the world. The Cooper Flag stuff, the draft's coming up. It's a great time to be a sports fan. So we'll be back on Wednesday with all that. Everybody stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Good to be home, baby. Good to be home. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.